Right, okay. Today we are going to discuss about economic statement. Okay. So then, why we are going to use economic statement? Because to identify the main components, the behavior of economics, the decision taken by the government or person in the economics can be identified by using statement of economics. So then we are going to use that statement as a tool to identify the behavior of economics, the concept of economics. Basically, we can identify two types of economics concepts or economic statements are there. First one is positive statements. Second one is normative statement. Okay. Both positive and normative statement are used to identify the components, behavior, and concepts of the economy. Okay. So it is one of the tool which we can identify the economics in any kind of country. So then the objective of economic is describe the economy. Something like maybe opinions of the one persons, including the statements or actual situations in the economy are included in the statement of the economics. So then based on that concept, we are going to divide all those statements into two categories. So what kind of statement are there? First one is the actual situation. Actual situation. If you are going to describe actual situations in the economy as a concept or as a statement, so we call it is positive statement. Positive statement. As an example, if you are going to discuss about forex market, okay, a $1 values from Sri Lankan rupees, LKR. Okay. For example, just consider a $1 equal to 300 rupees, Sri Lankan rupees. So it is actual situation. So we call it something like positive statement. Positive statement always describe the actual activities, actual scenario of the economy. So it is not an opinion of the one kind of persons. It's not an opinion of my mind. That is what happened in the Sri Lankan economy. I describe it, so then it must be belong to the positive statement. So actual situation, what happened, what happening, what will happen, each and everything must be included in the positive statement. If I'm going to describe anything by using real world data or actual situations, so it must be belong to the positive statement. It is positive statement. Positive means the actual situations. It's not imagined things. It's not expected things. It is just what happened and what happening in the economy. Described by the positive statement, right? Okay, we will discuss all those things. Before identify the basic components of this statement, I will use some example to describe that statement. Okay, and second one is normative. Normative. Actually, this is opinion. Opinion. Okay. As example, just consider USA. USA increase the import tax for many countries recent past. Okay, if you have seen that statements and uh, situations where Donald Trump um, make the statement, they are increasing the import tax for to China. In a big level. By looking at, some people can think that, some people will be make some opinion. Yes, USA must reduce the import taxes, import tariff for the China. Okay, some people who are living in this uh, particular country, I mean United States of America, they are increasing, they are uh, creating some statement, opinions to Donald Trump's government to reduce the taxes for other countries. They are creating some protests against the government, current government. So that is their opinion. Okay, that is their opinion. They say always USA should, USA should or must reduce the import tariff. Tariff mean taxes for the import and export. If you are going to impose taxes for the international transaction, I mean import and export, we call it tariff. If you are going to impose taxes for the domestic transactions, whether it is any kind of transaction in the domestically, we call it taxes. Okay, the difference between taxes and tariff is, it is based on the international trade, though it is based on the domestic trade. If it is domestic trade, you are imposing taxes, we call it taxes. If it is international trade, so we call it tariff. Okay, don't worry about all those words. I will describe during the period of taxes lesson. Okay, right. One of the men, he think that if USA can reduce the import tariff, it will be good for the living in USA, because imposing tariff for the Chinese productions, the price of the Chinese production will increase in USA. So it will be very hard to consume those commodities because its price is increased. So it is opinion. It is opinion of one person's, okay? But it is not actual situation. But it is not actual situation. So then now you can identify the main difference between positive statement and normative statement. Positive statement always describe the actual situation, what happened and what will happen and what is happening in the economy. It described by the positive statement. If you are going to discuss about the normative statement always describe the opinion of the one person's. What kind of things they expect from the economy, what kind of things they are expecting from the economic activities. That is why we are using some words included in that statement: should, must, something like that. It is very easy to identify the normative statement. Okay, so already identify the difference between normative statement and positive statements in the economy. So now we can thoroughly discuss about the positive statement in the economy. Positive statement. What's the meaning of positive statement? Okay, right. Let's move that one. Positive statement. Describe what is positive statement. Describing what is. What is mean? The actual situation. What is mean? Actual situation. Okay. Positive statement are objective. There must be objective, which they are going to achieve. Objectives. factor based. There must be some factors related behind that statement. Without factors, without evidence, we are not going to create positive statements, because positive statement is actual situation. Because positive statement is actual. It's not any kind of failure or something like that. Okay, because it is factor based. If I am going to create some positive statement, there must be evidence behind that statement. That is why we call it factor based, and can be tested. Yes, because it is practical. You can check it. If I am going to say that the $1 value is belong to the $1 value is convert to the Sri Lankan rupees, it is 300. So you can check it. You can find the informations. Okay, how we can say that something like that positive? Because a note is from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. That's the evidence. You can check it and can be tested or verified using real world evidence or data. Yes, you can check it by searching the website of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, zbsl.government.lk. Yes, you can check the value of $1 convert into the LKR. So you can check it now. Okay, using real world data or evidence, you can check, you can verify it, whether that statement is correct or not. Yes, they explain what happening. Yes, in this positive statement, explain what happening in the economy, what was happened. So then now you can identify always positive statement describe the present time period. Describe present time period. And always positive statement describe past time period. And also, according to the evidence, according to the data or information is past time period and present time period, they can forecast what will happen, and we call it future time period. So already, if you are going to include the real world data, real world evidence for this statement, positive, sorry, for the positive statement, yeah, past time period and positive, sorry, past time period and present time period statement must be correct. According to that data, if we are going to forecast what will happen in the future, it also must be good. Okay, that is why we call it you can verify it, you can test it. Okay, they explain what happening, what is happening, what has happened, and what will happen under a certain condition. The condition created by the past time period and present time period, then you can imagine what will happen in the future. That is what the technique behind that kind of statement. Okay, as example, let's discuss what kind of example you have to identify related to the positive statement. Then keep in your mind, you have to choose positive statements and normative statement in the exam. Okay, in exam MCQ paper, you will given five statement. From this, you have to choose what will be the positive statement. What is the normative statement? Okay, so you have to choose it. To be something like that one, to do something like that one, you must be a good understandability related to the positive statement and normative statement. Okay, so that is why you have to use it. That is why we are going to describe or discuss examples. Okay, right. And increases in fuel prices reduce vehicle sale in urban area. It is one of the positive statement. Okay, now we can check it or test it or verify. And increases in fuel prices. Increases in fuel prices. So if increases in fuel prices, what happened? Reduce the sale of vehicle. Vehicle sales reduce because fuel prices are increased. Is that practical? Yes. If fuel prices increases, what happened to the expenses of using vehicles in the urban area? The expenses, expenditure on the vehicles can be increased. So that means the people who are living in the urban area, they have to sacrifice many expenditure or many consumptions because of increasement of the fuel prices. Okay, as example, just consider one person earn only 2,000 rupees for 1 day and is going to make expenses 300 rupees for the 1 day for fuel consumption of his own vehicle. If pricing increases of the fuel, as example, 500 rupees. So then what happened? They have to sacrifice other consumption because in earlier he can expend money 1,700 rupees for the other purposes. But what will happen after increasing of the fuel prices? They have to reduce the other expenses into 1,500 rupees. So it is not a expected things for the consumers. That is why they are going to reduce the buying of the vehicles related to the urban area because they got. Why we are going to discuss about urban area? Because they got some alternatives. Okay, if they are going to sell this own vehicle, they can use metro, they can use train, they can use buses or taxis. Many things will be there. Okay, so then that means they got alternatives for that transportation purposes. So then according to the increasement of fuel, they are not going to purchase vehicle more and more. So it is practical situation. So there must be some hidden information, there must be some hidden concept behind that positive statement. We have to identify that one. Okay, actually it is not an opinion, it is one of the major activities happen when the prices are increased. Then what happened? The sale in the anything can be decreased because you have to sacrifice many things related to the purchasing. Okay, so this is one of the major activities. Okay, and let's move to the next one. Government expenditure roses by 12% in last year. Yes. As example, just consider about country name of a country. Increase the government expenditure by 12%? Yes, it is not opinion. That describe what happening. What happening and what happened. What happened? What was happened? So it is below to the what was happened. Is it because it is last year? So in here describe that what has happened. Okay, I mean past time period. So it also must be belong to the positive statement. Okay, one of the clear example to describe the nature of the positive statement. Okay. On the other hand, third one, higher interest rate lead to lower household borrowing. Yes. As an example, just consider uh, the commercial banks create interest rate for the credit interest rate for credit, something like 5%, 5%. Then consumers or households. So what do you mean by the household? Household mean, yeah, one person earn money from the house, earn money, and others are depending on that income. So something like that situation, we call it household. Okay, simple household. So then bank interest rate for the credit is 5%. Then household try to get the borrowing because the interest rate is very low. Okay, they can take borrowing and according to their purpose, they can purchase many things: vehicles, land, buildings, anything can be purchased by using that borrowing money. But suddenly, situation changed to second situation. This is first. The interest rate for the credit increased to 20%. 20%. Okay, this is huge difference between 5% and 20%. They increase the uh, interest rate into 20%. Okay, earlier it was 5%. Earlier it was 5%, but now it is 20%. So then what happened? The borrowing amount can be decreased because of the increasement of interest rate in here. Increasement of interest rate help to reduce the borrowing amount. Yes, it can be reduced. Why? As example, if they borrow 100 rupees in early situation, I mean, when the interest rate belong to the 5 rupees, 5%, then what happened? They have to pay for the returns for the borrowing 105. Okay. If it is interest rate increased to 20%, if they borrow 100 rupees, they have to pay 120 rupees back to the bank. So now you can identify if interest rate increasing, the payment from the borrowing person or household can be increased. So it will be costly for the household. So they try to reduce the borrowing amount uh, from the bank or any kind of financial institute. Okay, it is very easy to identify. Yes. So it is belong to the same situation. but is opposite situation for the saving also. If bank increase the saving interest rate, household increase the saving amount, because increasement of the interest rate for the saving will increase the earning facilities for the saving. So it must be a relative relationships correlated between interest rate and borrowing. Yes, if interest rate increase, borrowing reduce. If interest rate for the borrowing reduce, what happened to the borrowing? It increase. So now you can identify negative relationship between interest rate and household borrowing. Negative relationship between interest rate and uh, lower household or household borrowing. So it also a real world example. It describes what happening. It describes what will happening. It describes what was happening. So the real world situation. If you are not interesting, if you are not sure with that one, you can verify by using evidence of the real world. Okay, you can see the uh, central bank data, and you can create the evidence. You can check it. You can verify it. You can test it. Okay, those are belong to the uh, positive statements. Okay, uh, so it is very easy to identify positive statement. To identify those things. Okay, right. Right. I will provide some another example for the positive statement. Okay, then you can identify it very easily. Always positive statement has scientific background. Okay. I mean, positive statement has scientific background. Okay, scientific background. Scientific background means uh, they facilitate to investigate the statement, forecasting on available data. So that is why we call it is scientific background. It includes scientific background in the statement of positive. You can identify those things. You can investigate those things by using available data. Okay, as an example, just consider minimum wage cases unemployment. I will create one of the positive statement, minimum wage. Minimum wage cases unemployment. Unemployment. Minimum wage cases unemployment. Okay, now you can use the scientific method to check or investigate the uh, this kind of statement. Minimum wage. So what do you mean by the minimum wage? Okay. As an example, just consider about the workers who work in tea plantations. Situated in upcountry. Highland area. Okay. So then you know that the people who came from the Indian origin people, came to Sri Lanka, the time period which we recognize as belong to the United Kingdom. the people who belong to the lower caste in the system of Indian, United Kingdoms bring that peoples, brought that people into the Sri Lankan community as a workers in the plantation, especially for the tea plantation workers. The payment for their wages, payment for their labor is in a very low level. Okay. Before 1942, this was happened in Sri Lanka, according to the United Kingdom. Okay, because this country was belong to them. Okay, this country controlled by the United Kingdom, according to the Queen. So then that period, the civilization was there for the upcountry from the Indian Tamil people. So another community was established. But unfortunately, the wage rate of those peoples are very low. Those peoples are very low. As an example, just consider now in this present time period also 800 rupees per 1 day. One day means working 8 hours in the plantation, they can earn only 800 rupees. That is what happened related to the plantations in Sri Lanka. Okay. It's not a good situation actually. Okay. It will be a tragedy for the workers who are working in the plantations, especially if you are going to think about that one. 800 rupees for 1 day, it is look like they are earning only 2.6 $2.6 per day. Okay. I think it is very reasonably low level compared to the other countries. Okay, as an example, in European continent, if one worker works in a informal sector also, they are paying $20, 20 euros per hours. 20 euros per hours. Okay. 20 euro per 1 hour. I mean, at least 20 euro. But just consider, for 1 day, they are getting only $2.6. So then government decide it must increase. This must be increased. So as example, just consider they expect to increase this to 1,000 rupees. 1,000 rupees. Okay. As example, okay, 1,000 rupees. That means it belong to the, if you are going to convert that situation into dollar, $3.33 in present time period exchange rate. Okay. So it is not a reasonably okay, but compared to the previous situation, it is okay. So then what happened to the cost of the labor? Cost of the labor of plantation workers, plantation owners. Definitely, the cost of the labor can be increased because they have to pay more money for the laborers who are working in the plantations. It increased the cost of the productions. It increased the price of the tea. So it is unable to create the competition in the European market. So then what happened? The plantation owners take another decisions related to that particular situation. They buy machineries or capital equipments to pick the plantations, to pick the tea plantation from the plantation areas. So then what happened to the workers' jobs, workers' opportunities? Actually, opportunities for workers can be reduced. Then what happened to the workers who were working in the plantation? They become unemployed. Because plantation or factories don't need something like workers because they are already using capital equipments and machineries to pick the tea plantations. So then now you can identify enforcing minimum wage rate, something like that one, minimum wage. It cases unemployment in the country. So it is practical. So it is practical situations. Now you can identify positive statements can be tested by using evidence or actual data. So that is why I said that already positive statement include scientific background. In scientific background, there must be a combination between 3 or more components in the economy. There must be a relationship. There must be actual situations. There must be a practical situation. That is why I say that there must be a scientific background behind the statement of positive. That's what happened. Okay, I think you got it, right? Now we can move to the next statement. I already discussed about the positive statement, main features and example described. And now this is the time for identify the normative statement in the economy. Okay. It always describing what must be there. So now you can identify this is opinion. Opinion of one person. It is not practical situations. It is not what happened in the economy. It is not what happening in the economy. It is not described what will happen in the economy. It is just only based on the opinion of the one persons, based on the value, based on the ethics. But actual situation is not based on the opinion, values, and ethics. It is based on the factors. It is based on the determinants. Okay. Normative statement are objectives. Expecting something, that is why we call it objectives. Okay. Objective, subjective. Okay. I mean, they are expecting something. As example, take the first example, the government should increases. Should increases. Should increases. Okay. That means practically they not increase it, taxes. But this person thinks it should increases. Should increases taxes on luxury vehicles. Taxes on luxury vehicle to reduce the inequality. Yes. If they can increase the taxes of the for the luxury vehicle, then what happened to the demand and the prices of the luxury vehicle? Demand can be reduced, the price can be increases of the luxury vehicle, then what happened? It helped to create the equality or reduce the inequality situation in the society. Okay. It cannot be happening 100%, but it helped to create some equal situation or reduce the inequality in the society. Okay, this is not a 100% solution, but it's a help to identify that. Okay, right. Subjective and based on the opinion. Yeah, that kind of statement are based on the opinion. To describe the they what they are expecting, what kind of things expecting, but it is not actual situation, but expecting. The values of the society. What kind of things they are expecting. That is statement based on the values and based on the ethics. Okay? Good things in the society. Okay? They reflect personal beliefs because this normative statement reflect or represent personal beliefs, not the practical situation. So now you have to identify personal beliefs away from the practical situations. What you expect from the society, what you reflect from personal beliefs in the society, it is away from the practical situation. You are expecting something from the society, but you will not get it because the personal expectations and the practical scenario is different from the situation. So that is what happened in any kind of society. That is why they reflect personal beliefs in the normative statement about what should happen, okay, what should happen, or what is desirable, and what they are thinking about that and what they are expecting, and cannot be proved true or false throughout the evidence. So already we discussed in the related to the positive statement, you can prove it, you can test it, you can create check by using the real world evidence. But unfortunately, normative statement, you cannot do it. You cannot prove true or false throughout the evidence by using evidence in the society. They often contain word like should, ought to be, better, or fair. Especially this word should. Include that word in the statement of normative. Yeah? You can see that. Okay. See something like that? Yeah. Should. Including should. Yeah. This one should. This one should. Yes. The government should increases taxes. Government should increases taxes. Should. It include on a luxury vehicle. Second one is university education should be made free for all students. Yes, it is should, but the actual situation is not should. Okay. Some private universities provide that university education into the payment. Okay. On money. But the government universities provide university students, university educations in free. No need to payment for the semester base. But in private university, you have to pay on semester based. I mean, for the 6 months. Or you can pay full amount. It is one of the major activities. But we believe that the university education should be made free for all students. As an example, if you are going to discuss about the Sri Lankan government universities, it is free for all students. Okay. There's no any kind of barriers. If you are going to think about the German educations, German government educations, whether it is international student or domestic student, studying in the government universities, totally it is free. No need to pay for the semesters. But there may be some reasonable payment for the international students who become international student in European continent, I mean German continent. But in situation, yeah, belong to the government educations, it is free, right? So that's the meaning of normative statement. Normative statement always describe what's this person or this particular person, I mean, creating person for the example, expected. Okay, take a 1 minute, one break. Okay, few-minute break. Okay, I will back soon. Right. Okay. So then let's discuss about the third example. The central bank how to lower interest rate to help small businesses. Yes. So then uh, how to? It is something like should in this language of English. So then if central bank, I mean central bank or monetary authority in any kind of country reduce the interest rate related to the borrowing or credit, low interest rate. So then what will happen to the credit, cost of the credit? Cost of the credit or pressure of the credit, it can reduce. Definitely they can buy borrowing or take borrowing to develop the small businesses in the country. Okay, because the small businesses financial strength is in a lower level. They don't have much financial accuracy, financial ability to do high level of financial activities. And already we know that small businesses got uh, much lower capital, much lower ability to change anything. So then what happened? If government can reduce the interest rate, they can take borrowing from the financial sector, banking or any kind of financial sector institute. So then what happened? By using that finance, they can take some decision to implement related to the size of the organization, creating new technology for the productions and new marketing strategies, increase the quality of the productions, which and everything can be done by using that financial, I mean borrowing. So that is why they have to do that. But actual situation is not something like that. The person who made that statement, he think that if central bank can do that one, it will be a help to the small business to develop their business activities. That is what happened in here. The person who create that statement, they expect something like that one to be a lower level of interest rate to help the small businesses. Yes, the actual situation is away from the expected situation. That is why we call it, this is belong to the normative statement. It is what ought to be here. It's not a practical situation. What they expect from the economy, that is described in this statement. That is why we call as normative statement. Normative statement. Okay. This is not a practical situation. Right. It is normative statement. Okay. Yeah. So those are the things which we identified related to the normative statement. Again, I will describe Another example related to the normative statement related to the Sri Lankan economy. Farmers who produce paddy production. Okay, I mean farmers, especially for the paddy production, farmers should be given. Farmers should be given fertilizer subsidies. Fertilizer subsidy. Okay. In Sri Lankan continent, they are given chemical fertilizer subsidies. Okay, namely, is that can remember that exact value. I mean, 25,000, something like that. 25,000 rupees for one season. No yellow season, no Maha season. They are getting 25,000 rupees as a fertilizer subsidy. Okay. So in this statement, say that farmers should be given fertilizer subsidy. So it is okay for each and every farmers? No. The farmers who produce essential things, essential production. So it is okay. Each and every farmers who are conducting agriculture activities in the country, so it is not suitable for the each and every. Okay. Farmers should be given fertilizer. It is one of the opinion of the one person. And the person who create that opinion or create that statement, he expects something like that. Expectations. Expectation is described by the normative statement. What he expects, he described that by using a statement. Okay. But actual situation in the country, all farmers who produce agriculture production, for agriculture, horticulture, anything, okay, agriculture production, are not given fertilizer subsidy. So that is the actual situation. That is actual situation. Or you can say that what happened? What happening? Okay. But the person who made the statement, they expect something different from the actual situation. That's the difference between normative and positive statement. This is belong to the normative statement. Okay. And now we already discussed the difference between positive statement and normative statement. Right. This is the time which we can compare the positive statement and normative statement. Okay. Based on the described factors or evidence. Right. First one. The nature of the positive statement, it is based on the objective. It's based on the objective. Actually, it is what happened. This belongs to the actual scenario. But if we are going to discuss about the normative statement, it is based on the subjective. I mean, it is based on the opinion. The person who thinks this should be happen. Should be happen in the economy, but actual situation is shouldn't happen still. Okay, right. So then it is actual, it is think about the person who expected something like that. Okay. So then if you are going to think about the feature related to the verifiability of the positive statement and normative statement, yes, you can test the positive statement. You can verify with the data, real world data, because it is described what happened and what was happened and what will happen. So always positive statement based on the evidence. Always positive statement based on the true data, true information. That is why you can test it. That is why you can verify the data, verify the statement by using the data. But unfortunately, related to the normative statement, you cannot be tested. Cannot test it. Unfortunately, you can prove it, whether it is true or fail, true or false. You cannot test it. You cannot prove it because this normative statement, it is based on the opinion of one person. The opinion created in the mind of the persons. So then there is no evidence to prove it. There's no methodology to test it, whether it is correct or whether it is in practical or not non-practical situations. Okay. On the other hand, I mean, I'm going to use the third feature. It is purposes. The purpose of positive statement is to explain what happened, to explain what is, I mean, actual situation, actual or practical, actual or practical. Purpose is actual or practical. Explain what is. Okay. But in normative situation, suggest what should be. That means the opinion of the person or opinion of the statement makers, what they expect in economy, or expectations, or suggestions, but actual situation or practical situation away from the expected or suggestion situations. Okay, that means it is just only one of the opinion which they can expect from the real world. Okay. So next page is example for the positive statement. Inflation rate is just 5%. We just consider one of the country report that their inflation rate. What do you mean by the inflation? Inflation means continuous increasement of general price level. Continuous increasement of general price level consider as inflations. Okay, Zimbabwe, Lebanon, something like that countries reporting higher level of inflation in the world in this current time period. Okay, so you have to be with that kind of informations. Highest inflation rate in the world. Highest inflation rate in the world is reported in Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Lebanon, Turkey. Okay. Venezuela reporting Venezuela situated in South American continent. Okay. Latin America, we call it Latin America, Venezuela reporting something like 200%. And Argentina one of the major country in Latin America. They are reporting 150 or 180 between those inflation rate. It is the second of the world. First is Venezuela, second is Argentina, third one is Zimbabwe, situated in African continent. It is 100%, something like that. Okay. Inflation rate. And the fourth one is in the world, Lebanon. Lebanon inflation rate is 18%. Okay. Economic collapse because of this different types of banking crisis is there. So that is why it happened. Fifth one in the world is Turkey. Okay, it is 60%. It's 60. So other notable countries like Sudan, Suriname, Iran also representing a high level of inflation rate in the world. Okay. Basically, we have to think about the Venezuelans, Argentina, something like Zimbabwe, Syria, South Sudan, Palestine, Turkey, Iran, Nigeria. It also representing 33% also. Malawi, Angola, Afghanistan, something like that. Actually, those are the higher rate of inflation. But in the world, some countries represent lower inflation rates, like Afghanistan. Sri Lanka also included in the lower inflation rate because it is represent minus 0.8 inflation rate. Bahamas, Brunei, Panama, Senegal, Djibouti, Papua New Guinea, something like country represent lower inflation rate. So inflation they always represent continuous increasement of the general price level in the country. General price level means common price in the each and every commodities explained or exchanged in the country. Okay. 5%. It is based on the evidence. You can test it and you can verify it. And normative statements. Normative statements. As an example, inflation rate should be reduced. Yes, we agree with that one. It is one of the opinion. But unfortunately, each and every country cannot do that. Okay. Each and every country situated in any kind of continent, they cannot do it because controlling inflation is one of the hard target for the economy. It cannot be done. So can you do that value judgment for the positive statement? No, because it is actual situation, it is practical situation. It is what happened in the Sri Lankan continent or any kind of continent. It is what happening. It's not a value judgment. But in normative statement created by the persons, it is below to the value judgment. You can do the value judgment by using that statement because what people expect from the economy that described in the normative statement. Right. Basically, we already discussed each and everything belong to the positive statements and the normative statement. Difference, definitions, examples, compare the positive statements into the normative statement. Already done it. Okay. Now it is time to describe the main two branches of the economy. It is microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay. If you are going to study economics related to the any kind of things, So this economics can be divided into two branches, two categories. First one is microeconomics. Actually, in microeconomics, we are going to study the small economic units, something like price, price of the certain commodity, demand of the certain commodity, something like that. But in macroeconomics, study the whole world economy, whole economy. Example, gross domestic product, inflations. So in microeconomics, we discuss the price of X commodity. We call it PX, price of X commodity. But in macroeconomy, we are going to describe about GDP or inflation. Let's just take the inflation is suitable to that. In inflation, we are going to describe the general price level increasement. General price level. Each and every commodities exchange in the economy. Every commodity. So it is not about one commodity, or it is not about the few commodity. It is about each and every commodity exchange in the economy. So then now you can identify, studying microeconomics create the real understandability related to the small units. But in macroeconomics, you are going to study whole economy together at once. Whole economy together at once. Okay. Then let's discuss the differences and examples, the definitions, and everything belong to the microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Right. Let's move to that one. Microeconomics, the small picture related to the economic subject of economic, small picture. Right. Microeconomics studies the behavior of individual decision making. It's not about the whole things. It is described about small things. It's not about the each and every commodities. Describe wait 1 minute. You can see the page number 8 of your particular tutorial. It describes the main two branches of economics, I mean microeconomics and macroeconomics. Look at the page of 8. I'm describing all those components related to the page number 8. Okay, right. If you can identify the components which already given in the tutorial, it will be easy to identify. Okay, right. Microeconomics studies the behavior of individual decision-making units such as consumers, households, and firms, and the resource owners. It focuses on how those units make choices and interact in market for the decision makings and respond to the change in the prices and income. It is tiny activities, is tiny concepts we describe in the microeconomics. Okay. It helps to answer how do prices of goods and services get determined? How we determine? Why some firms make profits while other faces loses? Some company make profit, will it, but other cannot do it. How consumer react to the prices? Small activities, individual behavior, individual decisions described in the macroeconomic activities. Example, a bakery increase the price of breads and daily sales decreases. Yes. As example, just consider early price for the breads was 150 rupees. But suddenly, the bakery owner who produced that particular bread increased the price of bread into the 300 rupees. But in earlier, when the price of bread one equal to 150, the quantity, selling quantity was 500 breads. After increasing the price of the breads, the quantity of selling decreased to 300 quantities. So now you can identify the relationship between price and quantity. What happened to the price? Price increase, but the quantity demand decrease. Now you can identify the relationship between price and quantity demand. It is minus. When the price decrease, quantity can be increased. When the price increase, quantity can be decreased. So one of the major components of theory related to the economic subject in described in the microeconomics, we call it the law of demand. Okay. The relationship between price and quantity demand described as negative. So it is one of the major example for the microeconomics activities. Yeah, it described in here. And then a family chooses to spend more on education after receiving a salary bonus. Okay, they got salary bonus. Okay, they choose to spend more on the educations. Okay, already they spent $50 for a month for the education purposes. But after receiving that bonus, they increased 60%, $60 for the education purposes. Yes, that is their choice, because spending on money on the education purposes always it may be an investment, because you can get benefit spending on money on the education as an investment, because benefit come from the investing of education in the future time periods. You can take the benefit, not from the present time period. So it is one of the decisions, individual decision. So then here, this one, look at that one. In definition, they say that microeconomics studied the behavior of individual decision-making units. Yes, it is one of the decision-making. They increase the salary because of the salary bonus. So they are going to spend on that one, on the education. It's individual. So then we cannot recognize each and every person who take the bonus, they will spend money on the educations. No, something like that will not be happening in the country. They will spend on that all money on their purposes, or without educations, something like consumption purposes, something like Different investment purposes, maybe there. Third one, a mobile phone company reduce its prices to attract more buyers. Yes, the price of the mobile company, price of the mobile decrease or reduce. Then what will happen? Compare to the other mobile phones. Compare to the other mobile phones. It will be cheap. So then what happened? People attract to that particular mobile phone. The buying quantity of this particular mobile can be increases because it is cheaper than other. That is why it happened. Right? Okay. So now you identify the microeconomics. Microeconomics always study the behavior of individual decision making, such as consumer, household, firms, owner of the resource. It focuses on the make choices, interact in market, respond in the prices. So actually, in microeconomics, we are going to study tiny things, tiny activities, tiny decisions, tiny components in the microeconomics. That is why we call it is small picture. Okay, right. Again, now we are going to head into to understand what's the meaning of macroeconomics. Always macroeconomics describe the biggest picture in the economy. Macroeconomics study the behavior of economy as a whole. As a whole. Okay. If this is economics, so one thing is there. If you are going to study this one, only this one, when other things are remaining constant, assume that. So this is microeconomics. If you are going to study all things together at once, so we call it, this is macroeconomics. Okay, then macroeconomics studied the behavior of the whole economy. It examined broad aggregate and average of the economy, such as national income, inflation, unemployment, economic growth. All those topics are belong to the macroeconomics because it covers the total economic activities. It covers the entire economy. So that is why we call it, it is belong to the macroeconomic. So what kind of things it includes? Broader things. How it is help to answers. Why do countries face inflation or recessions? You can identify these things. What policies can be reduced to employment? Yes, you can identify those things. How is national income measured? Gross domestic products, gross national product, which and everything can be identified after studying the macroeconomics variables and macroeconomic subjects and components related to the behavior of the whole economy at once. So as example, related to the macroeconomics, the central bank increases the interest rate to control the inflation. Yes. Inflation is described the prices of the all commodities exchange in the economy. Right? It describes the behavior of the considering area, each and every commodities. The central bank can take the decision by reducing the interest rate or increasing the interest rate. We can control the inflations. I mean, reduce the inflation. If they can increase the interest rate, what will happen to the buying or credit? It reduces. Then what happened to the buying ability of the people? It also reduces. Then price also can be reduced because the demand reduced. The shortage of the production also, shortage of the commodity also can be reduced. it helps to reduce the inflation. Don't worry about the components. I will describe each and everything in the lessons. Something interest rate, inflations, it will be a new subject or new topic for you. But don't worry, we can describe all those things, right? Because it's very easy to identify. Okay, next one. The government launches a job creation program to reduce youth employment. Yes, they can do it. It's not only about the one person. It is about the whole nations, whole youth people living in this country. So that is why we belong to the macroeconomics. A rises in global oil prices. Cases Sri Lankan import bill increases. Yes, because of increase of oil prices, transportation cost increases, exchange rate increases. So then what happened to the import bill? It also must be increases. It is what happening in Sri Lanka because of the conflict of European continent, especially for the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, conflict between USA and China, conflict between Palestine and Israel. Each and everything blocked the international trade, and the cost of the international trade also increased. The fight of the other rebels groups related to the Arabian Peninsula. Each and everything creates difficult to transaction between other countries. And the cost of the transaction also will be increased because of that kind of situation, especially Somalian pirates. Because of that pirates, there must be threats for the international transaction, international navigations, something like. So then they have to demand the security. So then they have to pay for the security purposes also. Then what happened to the transaction cost? It increased. So it happened. In practically it happened. It is not a simple one activity or one major decision for one person. Is it a decision for whole nations, other countries also. So it is belong to the macroeconomics. So now you can identify the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay. So main components by using main components. Right. Okay. And then first one, subject. Okay. Or scope. In macroeconomics, we are going to scope, we are going to consider about the individual units or consumer firms. But in macroeconomics, we are going to focus on the entire economy at once. What are the focuses? Prices, output, market, profit, something like that. But in microeconomics topics, national income, employment, inflation, something like that. What are the key tools? Demand, supply, cost, and market strategy. Those are the key tools. But in here, macroeconomics, we are going to discuss monetary policy, fiscal policy, GDP, gross domestic product, something like. Example, a bakery set a price for the cake. To produce the cakes, they decide the prices. But government raises the interest rate to control the inflation. It's a vast experience of vast activity. Objective, resources or allocation and price efficiency. Resources allocation, price efficiency. To take the maximum utilization of resources. It includes the microeconomy. But in macroeconomic level, economic stability and growth, whole economy activities belong to that one. So that is what we are going to discuss in here. So now you can identify the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics at once. Okay. In next day, we can discuss the economic modeling and scarcity and other things. Okay. And now we are going to wind up these sessions. If there any problem, you can ask.